They didn't break up with you, but your stomach just dropped. Why does intense love feel so much like constant fear? This is the dark, psychological paradox of over-attachment triggers, a system that forces you to lose yourself in the pursuit of another person. You know that feeling, right? That sudden gut punch of anxiety when something just feels a little off with your partner. Well, that isn't a sign of deep love. It's a warning sign. It's a flare going up from a part of your brain that's mixing up obsession with affection and fear with passion. So in this explainer, we are going to pull that system apart. We're going to pull back the curtain on why this happens, what it looks like, and most importantly, how you can reclaim your sense of self. Let's dive in. So here's our game plan. We'll start by really defining the problem. Then we're going to descend into the mechanics of why it even happens. And after that, we'll climb back up to the solution. Clear, actionable steps to break this cycle and find security from the inside out. To really get a handle on this trap, we've got to define our terms first. What are we actually talking about when we say over-attachment? You know, this isn't just about caring a lot for someone. It's a very specific pattern where that care starts to curdle. It morphs into something much more unstable, something that feels a whole lot more like panic. Now let's just pause and look at the language here. The key words really tell the story. Unhealthy, compulsive, and excessively tethered. I mean, that's not exactly the language of romance, is it? It's the language of addiction. Compulsive means you feel this irresistible urge to act even when you know you shouldn't. And excessively tethered, that means your entire emotional well-being, your happiness, your self-worth, your ability to just feel okay is no longer in your hands. It's been outsourced to someone else. Their mood is your weather. Their approval is your oxygen. So this whole pattern doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's deeply rooted in a well-known psychological framework called anxious attachment style. This often gets baked in during childhood, usually from inconsistent caregiving, and it creates this deep, nagging fear of abandonment. So as an adult, this shows up as a kind of internal threat detection system that is just dialed way, way too high. You become hypervigilant, you're constantly scanning for tiny shifts in your partner's behavior because your nervous system is basically primed to expect rejection at any moment.
Okay, so if this anxious attachment is the gunpowder, what's the spark? What lights the fuse? What are these specific, often tiny little events that can set off such a massive emotional explosion?
And this list is just brilliant because it shows how seemingly small things can feel absolutely catastrophic. You see, for someone with a secure attachment, a delayed text is, well, it's just a delayed text. But for the anxiously attached person, oh no. The mind makes this devastating cognitive leap. The delayed text isn't a fact, it's evidence. Evidence that they're losing interest, that you've been forgotten, that abandonment is right around the corner. A partner needing space isn't a healthy thing. It feels like a personal, painful rejection. Every single one of these triggers activates that core fear. And the intense anxiety that floods you, that's the first and most often missed warning sign. All right, let's get into the core mechanism of how this whole thing builds on itself. This isn't just a random feeling. It's a predictable, systematic cycle. I want you to picture it as a 4-step addiction loop. It's so sneaky because once you're in it, it feels like you're fighting for love, when what you're really doing is feeding an addiction. Understanding this loop is absolutely the key to breaking free. And here it is, all laid out. It kicks off with the trigger, one of those small things we just talked about. That trigger leads straight to step 2, anxiety spiking, where your system is just flooded with panic. In response to that panic, you jump to step 3, which psychologists call protest behavior. And all that frantic action leads to the final step, a moment of temporary validation, which brings relief but also reinforces the entire cycle, setting you up for the next time. Let's really zero in on step 2, because this is the critical moment. The anxiety spike is the warning sign. It's the flashing red light telling you your relationship is being fueled by fear, not security. And we're not talking about a little bit of worry here. This is a full-body, physiological alarm bell going off. Your heart is pounding, your stomach is in knots, your mind is just racing with worst-case scenarios. Your body is reacting like you are in real, immediate danger. That intense, totally disproportionate reaction, that's your signal that your attachment system has been hijacked.
And what do we do when we feel like our survival is on the line? We fight back. Protest behavior is that fight. It's the desperate, frantic scramble to close that distance you feel and get the connection back right away. This can look like a lot of different things. Sending a flood of texts, calling over and over, maybe even picking a fight just to get a response, any response. The goal isn't really to communicate. The goal is to put out the unbearable fire of anxiety as fast as humanly possible. It's a pure, frantic pursuit for relief.
So why on earth do we keep doing it? Well, this is the neurological trap. When your partner finally texts back or says something reassuring, your brain gets this incredible flood of relief. And that relief is a chemical reality. It's a hit of dopamine, the exact same neurochemical that's involved in reward and addiction. So your brain learns this simple, powerful equation. Anxiety plus frantic pursuit equals a dopamine hit. The loop basically gets you addicted to your own anxiety. The protest behavior gets reinforced, which makes you even more likely to do it all over again next time.
So we've covered the what and the how. Now it's time for the why. Why does this dynamic keep going? The answer is that both people in this relationship are actually getting a deep, powerful need met. The huge problem is that those needs are dangerously mismatched, and they create this kind of toxic balance. Okay, this slide right here is fascinating because of the stark contrast it shows. On the left, you've got the person with anxious attachment. Let's call them the target. Their main motivation is something called wound resolution. They are, without even realizing it, trying to heal that old abandonment wound from their past. They're desperately seeking safety and trying to prove that their deepest fear, that they're unlovable and will be left, is wrong. But on the right, their partner's motivation can be totally different. The target's constant chasing and pursuing acts as what's known as narcissistic supply. It's basically a source of ego fuel. It confirms how desirable they are, it makes them feel powerful, and it lets them maintain control of the whole dynamic. And here it is. This is the central, tragic misunderstanding of the whole thing. The target's brain gets it all backward. All the anxiety, the drama, the highs and the lows, the incredible effort it takes to win back affection, all of it gets misinterpreted as proof of how deep the love is. The internal logic is something like, if I'm willing to fight this hard, if I feel this intensely, then this must be true love. The struggle itself becomes mistaken for the value of the prize, and you completely miss the giant flashing warning sign that this bond is built not on security, but on compulsion and fear. Okay, so we have been deep in the weeds of the problem. Now it's time to start the climb out. How do we actually break this addictive cycle? Well, the entire strategy has to shift. It shifts away from seeking validation from your partner and toward creating stability inside yourself. It's all about moving from that frantic reaction to a conscious state of regulation.
This is really the only question that matters, isn't it? Once you're caught in that anxiety spiral, how do you actually pull yourself out and get back in the driver's seat of your own emotions? The answer comes down to two key defense mechanisms. They're simple to understand, but they take real commitment to pull off. And here they are. First, you have to learn to name what's happening in the moment. This creates a critical bit of space between the trigger and your usual response. Second, you put a hard and fast rule in place, the 24-hour delay. This thing acts like a circuit breaker for that impulsive protest behavior. Let's break each of these down.
Okay, so step one is all about mindfulness. When you feel that familiar lurch of anxiety, the racing heart, the tight chest, you have to stop and label it for what it is. So instead of thinking, oh my God, he's pulling away, I'm gonna lose him, you have to practice a new internal script. Something like, okay, this feeling is my anxious attachment system turning on. This is a memory of a past fear. It is not an accurate reading of what's happening right now. Just by naming it, you separate the feeling from the fact. You reframe it from a real emergency into a psychological pattern that you can just observe instead of being completely consumed by it.
And that brings us to the most practical, hands-on tool for breaking the compulsion. Step 2, the 24-hour delay. When you feel that overwhelming, all-consuming urge to engage in that protest behavior, to send that angry text, to make that demanding call, you make a non-negotiable contract with yourself. You will wait 24 hours. This delay does something almost magical. It gives the cortisol and adrenaline time to flush out of your system, the emotional, reactive part of your brain quiets down, and the logical, rational part of your brain can finally come back online. And most importantly, it starves that dopamine loop of its immediate reward, which weakens the entire addictive cycle over time.
Ultimately, this is the fundamental shift you're trying to make. You're consciously choosing the long-term prize, self-regulation, over the quick, short-term fix of reactive relief. You are learning how to soothe your own anxiety instead of demanding that someone else do it for you. It's about recognizing that the temporary validation you get from their response is like a drug that just keeps you sick. Real health comes from developing the ability to find your own peace, your own center, no matter what another person is doing.
And this brings us to the final and honestly the most empowering idea in this whole process. Everything we've talked about, the triggers, the loop, the psychology, the solutions, it all points to one profound truth about where real lasting security actually comes from. Just let that one sink in for a second. A healthy, secure relationship should be a source of peace, not a constant source of anxiety. It should feel like a safe harbor, not a battlefield you have to conquer every single day. If your relationship demands that you constantly sacrifice your mental and emotional peace just to keep it going, it is not a secure relationship. The ultimate goal here is to build a sense of self-worth that is so solid, so unshakable, that no delayed text message could ever knock it down.
So, what have we unmasked here? Well, first, we've seen that overattachment is really driven by anxious attachment, creating this dangerous dependence on someone else for your own self-worth. Then we saw exactly how the pattern works. An everyday trigger causes that anxiety spike, which in turn ignites protest behavior. And now we get it, that frantic hunt for wound resolution, that desperate need to fix a past pain, that is the warning sign you have to learn to recognize. And finally, we see how awareness is what breaks the loop. By using tools like the 24-hour delay and choosing the tougher path of self-regulation, you stop sacrificing your own peace for a crumb of external validation. You take the power back. You learn that true security was never something they could give you. It was always something you had to build for yourself.